Tron is CGI! So Carson, this week is New York Comic-Con. Unfortunately, a very depressing week for the both of us because we said multiple times on the podcast that we would be at New York Comic-Con, and if you cannot tell, we're not at New York Comic-Con.
You're dead to me.
Look. I know it's my fault. I know. My sister's wedding screwed everything up. I blame my sister.
You're dead to me.
But we had big news coming out because there's a few different things we can talk about here. I'll start with the one that I think we both care the least about. Minecraft Movie 2. Yay. Rip to all the cinema workers out there. They probably are curled up in a ball crying themselves to sleep now, waiting for 2027.
Do you think during the announcement somebody pulled out a live chicken and somebody just shouted chicken jockey and like the whole place just burst into like flames?
I kind of hope so. I'm kind of depressed that they didn't have like a big recording of the announcement because I don't know if this one came out of New York Comic Con, but I think it did. But if they did, they should have had like literal flames and popcorn cannons, and they should have been going ballistic.
I feel like that movie deserves. That movie's gonna. The second movie's gonna. People are gonna blow up that theater. Like I swear to God, it's gonna be a tactical nuke just dropped on each individual theater the moment whatever anything Jack Black says just gets dropped.
I'm just depressed that didn't happen at my theater. I saw this movie with 5 other people, and 3 of those people were children. The other 2 were those children's parents.
I saw a video of a bunch of kids who all rented out of the theater from like a high school, and they just all took off their shirts and they were just waving them around the entire time. I was like, you know what? That's mildly tame. The entire theater is your school, and that's a bit more mildly tame than you guys throwing popcorn and making a bigger ruckus. Like, I'm actually like, that's okay. I can allow that one.
See, that's fine. Minecraft, you remember when Joker released and they put like warnings out because there was bomb threats at the Joker premieres and there was like police presence and they like locked it down. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like a really big deal in the news when the Joker released.
Yeah, I know. I remember
it's gonna be ramped up to 1,000 for this movie. It's gonna be insane.
I tried to scrub Joker from my mind since the disaster that came out last year called Joker Folie à Deux.
I refuse to watch Joker Folie à Deux just because Joker is one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. So I refuse to ruin its memory with whatever the fuck they released with Lady Gaga.
The issue is I went and watched the movie because I said to myself, it can't be that bad. Turns out it was pretty bad. And it actually is my least favorite movie I've ever seen in theaters. It is the biggest disappointment I've ever seen. So therefore I've tried to scrub as much as I can from my own mind. So
fair enough, honestly. But yeah, that was some of the news. Other big news that came out, we got our first actual like big tease of Wonderman. It was like a little bit over a minute. Unfortunately, in this news, this wasn't in the headlines that I saw, but I also just mainly saw the trailer. It got delayed.
They're trying to hide it. I don't think there's any way of saying it. They're trying to hide it. I think here's the thing with Wonderman. Wonderman is like the last Sorry Battalion show that the MCU is trying to push out. Like it was just one of the things they announced and it already filmed, similar to like Ironheart when they filmed it a long time ago. And now I'm not saying their whole plan has shifted, but now we live in a time when they've already said we're going to slow down. We're not going to do as much at once. We're going to actually take our time with this. We're going to make proper stuff. This is like the last bit of the really bad end of a Marvel time, which everybody just kind of wants to forget. I think that's why it got delayed. They're probably either reshooting stuff or they're re-editing in the editing room everything so that the show can be better than what it is. I would not be surprised if it's delayed now. They're going to drop all 6 episodes at the same time. I would not be surprised if they do that.
Yeah, dropping all the episodes at the same time, Ironheart basically did that. They dropped it in 2 waves. So, like, I think the last show to release weekly was, I think Agatha All Along did weekly, right?
Agatha All Along did weekly after the first 2 episodes, I believe.
Yeah, but it's still weekly enough. Like they typically do the 2-episode drop nowadays, and then they do weekly. But every other show releases all at once or in 2 phases, like Ironheart did.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like I saw the trailer. It was okay. Wonder Man's not a character where I've been like, oh yeah, I really want to see this character. But you know, we also had projects like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man where it turned out okay. So maybe the show will be fine, maybe it won't. There wasn't really anything that like super excited me in the trailer though. Again, when I say it's like the last bit of Marvel that was like off the really bad, we're gonna make so much at once, quantity over quality era, it really is, and it just goes to show how much I don't care about this trailer and about this character. Of course, I'm going to watch it. Of course, I'm going to find something to like. I find that every Marvel project, I will find something to like. I will find something to enjoy. But this trailer didn't sell me on anything either. I just looked at it and went, okay, I'll see you in 2026.
It's exciting to get more Marvel just because I'm a Marvel nerd, but at the same time, you're right. Like, I walked away from that trailer going, it'll be okay. Like, I don't think it's going to be the worst thing ever. Like, it looks okay enough, but they really didn't give us that much. Like, again, this was a minute-long teaser. This wasn't a trailer. So, we're working on very limited information.
Sure.
Another thing we're working on very limited information on is Invincible Season 4, which,
Yeah.
mind you, we got more information than we got out of Wonderman because this is coming March 2026, which is insane because, Carson, one of the first things we talked about on this podcast was Invincible. We did our
Yes.
weekly reviews of Invincible on this podcast, and literally a year later, it's I think legitimately a year after it released because it started in March, is the next season, which admittedly has me worried because there were so many complaints about the animation from last season in certain scenes. I wasn't as big of a hater, but I definitely like had my qualms with it. With
Yeah.
this season, they're pumping it out real fast, and that doesn't bode a lot of confidence for me. What are your thoughts though?
Yeah, I think look, Invincible was better when it had the time gap in between it to really milk the show, not milk it, but like draw it out, give people more time to animate things, give people more time to do things. I don't know what's been going on in the room. I don't know if they were making the season prior to season 3 even releasing. I don't know what's already happened. I don't know if they started after season 3 released. The one thing you can't say about Invincible, even if the animation quality goes down slightly, and it is slightly, like the animation still isn't bad, but it does go down slightly. One thing you can't say about Invincible is that the show is bad or it's awful. And they've proven that even when a season releases, like in a shorter period of time than first season and second season, the show is still really, really good. So at the end of the day, as long as that is intact, I'm not so much going to care about the animation quality, although I would like that to be on par with the first season as close as possible. So I'm not like worried. Well, okay, I'm worried because I'd like the animation quality to be nicer, but I'm not worried for the sake of the show. I think that the show is going to be perfectly fine. It's going to be very well written, very well executed. There's too much proof over the past few years of Invincible to just sit here and go, oh yeah, no, this is going to be complete shit. Like
Oh yeah,
there's too
I
much proof for that.
I definitely don't think it's going to be complete shit. Like, well, I'll get that straight right off the bat. Like, I am very excited for this next season. I don't know where it's leading, but where we left off on last episode with Mark starting to say, "Oh, I'm actually going to start killing villains." Like, I
Yeah,
think that is really interesting. It's going to get us into what I'm hoping is going to be another banger arc. I just have to admit, like, the reason the story can stay so consistently good is because they're basing it off of source material that is
right.
already really good. The part that they need to nail as the animation studio has nothing to do with it being a really good story. It has everything to do with, does your audio sound good? Does your animation look good? And again, a lot of people weren't as pleased with last season.
Right.
I, again, not as big of a hater, but the big fear comes in when, oh, you're turning this around in a year. Now, how many episodes is this going to be? That'd be an interesting conversation that I don't think we have confirmed. If this is a shorter season, okay, that can make some sense. Give us an arc or an arc or two, something of that nature.
Sure. I think it's a wait and see. We'll see what happens. Chances are, if they are pushing out pretty quickly here, unless they've already been working on it and they've had plenty of time, chances are there's a good chance that this will be same animation quality as the third season. But the story itself is still going to be pretty good. So it's it's not a complete loss. It could be a shit show with horrible animation at the end of the day.
Yeah. What else do you want to talk about? There was a lot. New York Comic Con is probably going to be our cold open for the next like 2 episodes.
Oh, sure.
We're
Look, I mean,
obviously while it's happening. So
this wasn't a New York Comic Con announcement, but we can touch over it. Peaky Blinders got. I don't think it's a new movie, from what I understand.
It's a spin-off series.
It's a spin-off series that's taking place. Don't kill me if I'm wrong. 50 years after the original series.
Okay.
So I don't know where it's set. I don't know what it is. I don't know if anybody knows that, but from what they're saying, it's like 1940 something or so. It's like 50 years after the original show. Theoretically, a different set of characters, which I don't know if it's a Peaky Blinders spinoff, like it's following a different gang, or if it's following the Peaky Blinders. But we also know we're getting this Peaky Blinders movie with Cillian Murphy.
Yes,
coming out.
I hear about that as well.
I think it's next year. We're literally getting this. So maybe that's going to feed into this next chapter of Peaky Blinders creating this new show. Look, TV shows sequels have always been hit or miss. It's really hard to predict when those things are going to be good. The only time I've ever seen a spinoff show that's worked to the like an extreme level was Better Call Saul. And that's just because Vince Gilligan is a god at writing, and he creates great characters. And
you're basing it off of what most would argue the best TV show of all time. So your base is already there for great character writing,
right?
Great set piece, like everything's already set up for you.
House of the Dragon is another example. Season 2 was not as good as season 1, but it's certainly not a bad show as a spinoff for Game of Thrones. Another piece of media that got announced this week, the trailer for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, another spinoff show of Game of Thrones. The spinoffs, again, there's only one, so it's like whatever. But the spinoffs have not missed yet. Like the writers and the creators know their audience, know it's Game of Thrones, know that they don't just want action. They want the character drama. They want slow builds, which is exactly what Game of Thrones was best known for. It's why the 8th season failed, is because they threw all that out the window and said, let's have some action sequences. I think that the show itself could succeed. I think it could do very well. And then similar to Peaky Blinders, as long as it sticks to the same, because Peaky Blinders is also kind of the same type of show. It's a big, slow build, focuses on character and builds to a big action set piece that either happens in the penultimate episode or the final episode. But those are 2 announcements that happened this week where I was like, okay, we'll see what happens with that. Just see what goes on.
The only other, I guess, semi-big announcement was the casting from FNAF, the FNAF movie.
Yeah. Whatever.
It's weird because, there's big stars. All I'm going to say, because I don't know how much we can really riff on this conversation, I am very glad that Matt Pat gets to play a bigger role in this, because no offense to anyone else, he is the reason Five Nights at Freddy's is the thing that it is today. He is
absolutely
one of the biggest reasons this thing is getting a movie. And even though he's retired from YouTube for the most part, I know he's still kicking around in the content creator space. Hell, he was up here in DC not that long ago in Congress. That man is still busy as all get out, but the fact that he gets to play a bigger role in this movie, he's which toy is he? Toy Bonnie, I believe, if I remember correctly.
No, yeah, Toy Bonnie. No, Toy Bonnie? It doesn't matter. He's one of them, but he's playing a bigger role, which is really, really good, considering, you're right, he was a big influence on the game. I'm not a big fan of the game. I never really played the game. I don't really even care about the game. I thought the first movie was just mid at best. But I do agree with everybody else in saying they do make some fun choices and things that are like, oh, that's a fun little nod. Like Matt Pack getting to play a bigger role is a really cool nod to just the history of the game for the fans. And I think it's funny because, let's talk about this for a second. At Halloween Horror Nights, they have a house based to WWE this year. Objectively, it's not a good house. It just doesn't work. But as a WWE fan, and this is what I have heard from a memorial perspective, because it's based off of a wrestler who sadly passed away years ago. As a love letter to the fans and a love letter to that man. It is one of the most beautiful and just like engaging houses I think I've ever been through. Like if I didn't know the history, I would think this house would be just mid and okay. Like I can't say it's bad fully. Like there's some bad houses this year, but it's just mid. When you add the emotional element to it, when you see like, oh, it's a big love letter to the fans, that's really cool. Minecraft movie did the same thing with like Technoblade, having like just a quick cameo in the Minecraft movie. It was a pig and saying it's a legend,
Yes,
whatever.
the crown that they called royalty. Yeah.
When films do that and it's in service to the fans, we talk about fan service nowadays. Those are fan servicey things where it's really hard to go, that was stupid or that's dumb. It is genuinely a really nice sentiment to have. It's not just
No, you're right. You're right. It is a good sentiment to have. Sorry, I'm laughing because fan service means something royally different in the anime community than it does in the general nerd community.
I'm explaining it the best I can. If there's a different term I should
No.
use, like that's the best way to say it.
You're using the terminology correctly. It's me as clearly an anime fan that just finds it funny when someone talks about fan service outside of the anime community and going, finally, we can use this word and not be called degenerates.
Well, I'm going to use the term fan service later. I feel like every podcast for the past 2 weeks, I've like segued with the cold open perfectly into at least one of the two topics that we've talked about, where it's like disappointment, overhyped. And now I'm talking about fan service. You're gonna hear me say that term later, quite frequently in one of the projects that we're talking about today.
Wrapping up the FNAF conversation, it's a generic horror movie wrapped in a nostalgic video game that a lot of people like. It is what it is. I might get some hate for that, but it simply is true in my opinion.
I'll take the hate with you for that because I completely agree.
Yeah, but we're not talking about FNAF 2 today. We will be talking about FNAF when it comes out in December, November, whenever it comes out. It's on the schedule. But you'll have to wait for those thoughts because what's up, Nimrods? It's your boys back with another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast on the internet where your two favorite Nimrods can talk all things nerdy. I'm your host for today's episode, Brandon, aka Parrotfish, here with my forever co-host,
Carson, aka Juggernaut.
And on today's episode, we will be talking about two things. One, we will be talking about the Peacemaker season finale, and actually the series finale, because James Gunn confirmed that there is no season 3 in the works. This is the end of Peacemaker's story in TV format. However, he will make other appearances later on.
Yeah.
And technically, let me get this straight. He didn't say definitively there will never be a Peacemaker season 3. He just said that it's not in the picture right now. So we can essentially say this is the series finale.
Yes, which is, I'm assuming I'm allowed to start with the you'll do your things, but I'm assuming I'm going to start because I kind of want to segue from that point to talk about it. But do your thing first. I just wanted to make sure I was starting first so I could segue off of that.
No, you're good. You're starting first. But on top of that, we will also be talking about Tron Ares. This is the third movie in technically a trilogy. They do have carryover plot points. I think you can still enjoy these movies without having seen the other ones personally. As someone who has seen them but hasn't seen them in so long that I barely remember the plot, we'll get into that conversation. I think that'll be definitely a talking point. But those are our two things. I'll go ahead and give it now before I even ask Carson how he's doing. Big spoiler warning for both Peacemaker and Tron Ares. We do not do non-spoiler reviews. Everything we say is going to be filled with spoilers. We try to keep the spoilers segmented off. If you want to hear one conversation versus the other, look in the timeline for timestamps. You can jump to the Peacemaker season finale or the Tron Ares conversation. But before we get into that conversation, Carson, how are you doing? I know you've had a rough past few weeks.
My car is shot. The first floor of my house is flooding. I had to pay taxes this week, Brandon. I had to pay payments. That's the worst bit. Other than that, I got out. My whole Thursday was so weird, man. It was the longest day of my life. I went to work. I had to get angry at some kids because they were being disrespectful to certain other kids, which just ruined my day. And I go to Spirit Halloween. And I'm prepping for Halloween. We may have a fun Halloween themed episode. I might put on a costume for a Halloween themed episode. You never know.
Halloween's coming up fast.
It is. I already got my costume. It was like $5. It's super cheap. Because I have everything else ready to go. I just need to get one thing. I go to Spirit Halloween. There's only so much you can do in Spirit Halloween, but I was angry the entire time, venting to my friend, and then I get in the car to go watch Tron Ares on Thursday night. And then I remembered after watching Tron Ares, my night's not ruined. I still have Peacemaker. Hooray! This night's not ruined. And then I went to bed promptly at like 3 a.m. in the morning after watching Peacemaker. That pretty much sums up my entire week. And then I got up at like 6 a.m. the next day to continue my day. So that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm a mess. How are you? How's life?
So nothing's changed. I'm good. It's been a week. Honestly, not really much to talk about from my end. It's been another weird week, but every week's been weird. Not like as chaotic as yours, but just a lot of random little weird things happening all over my life, trying to figure out travel back to Florida for something. Amazon Prime Day happened, which is good, but I spent way too much money. It's been a decent week. Work's been I can't talk about work obviously, but work's been weird. So yeah, let's just get into this. I'm excited. Actually, I'm not excited. I'm not excited to talk about these two things with you because it's gonna be it's gonna be an interesting conversation. And getting into that with interesting conversations, I will go ahead and kick it to you for Peacemaker season 2, season finale, probably series finale for now.
So, to the season they set up, when you object, because I'm gonna be all over the place with this. To the season they set up, this is exactly the type of finale that this needed to be. There was only one other option in my mind that this finale could have gone that would have worked. Because here's the issue this show ran into. And it's not a negative thing. It's just something that you rarely see in television series that actually take their time and try to focus on character studies and character work over the big action sequences. When I was talking about like Game of Thrones is notorious for, you never got far enough into it, but it's notorious in a very good way to usually every season. There might be one season where they just don't, or they might put it in a different spot. Usually every season, it's all character build. It's a big season of just talking to each other, traveling from one location to another. You're on this journey. You're following the characters. It's a big political thriller set in a fantasy reality. And the penultimate episode of that season is the one episode that's dedicated to a huge battle. It's dedicated to a huge event that's taking place, action heavy, big sequences. It's less focused on character, but it's a payoff to the season before. And the last episode is a build to what comes next. Peacemaker's finale feels like that to me. When I last week we had mentioned that Peacemaker's finale, we didn't know where they were going to go. Yeah. We didn't know what they were going to do because everything that we had thought they were going to do, they had done in that episode. And the more I had thought about it, there were only two logical options that could have happened. One, they could have tried, which would have made the show ridiculous, to go over, like blow us away with going over more than what they had already done. Like give us a bigger thing, a bigger event, a Justice League level event, mind you, for Peacemaker's finale. Or they do another good option, which is go under, and they bring it back down to earth, and they focus on character, which is what this episode did very, very well. This is a phenomenally written episode, and this is a phenomenally acted episode from all standpoints. And the thing that I love about it is this focuses on, it wraps up Chris's story really well, but it focuses on the characters and it gives everybody a moment to shine. It gives everybody a chance to bring the stories from season 2 full arc. Whether they're the best or not, we'll talk about that, because there's some characters where it's like it's not bad, it's just not the best I've seen. I want to address the controversy as I talk about. I know I'm going on about this, but like there's so many points I need to hit within my general thoughts here. I want to address the controversy that everybody's talking about. Everybody online, after watching this episode, I went online just for like 5 minutes because I wanted to see what everybody was saying, because I thought I knew where they were going to go with this, and I was right. It's very split. And to those that say that this was James Gunn missing, you're entirely wrong. I'm sorry, that's wrong. When you look at the show that he set up, which is a character study of Chris Smith, and it's him coming to forgive himself, accepting the reality he lives in, accepting that he has people around him that love him and care for him, and that they need him. That's the whole arc of Peacemaker in this season. And there might be a bit more. I'm probably skimming over it. The ending had to be a big character moment. It had to be this slowed down version to get us to the moments that we needed paid off. Harcourt and Chris, Economos and Eagly, which is really stupid, but we got that, and that was a payoff. Honest to God, I know he's your least favorite character. Langston getting something in the end is a payoff that we weren't even expecting, but was really nice. Bordeaux, of all people, got a payoff. Judo Master got payoff. Again, we're talking about some characters that, may not have had the best arc, but they had an arc nonetheless, and at least they tried, and it still, in some case, works. The final monologue that Adebayo gives to Chris was heartwarming and was truly beautiful, and proves to me that James Gunn is still, in my opinion, probably one of the best writers working in the comic book. It may be the best comic book writer. I'm not saying director or any of it. Russo brothers, Nolan, whatever you want to say, whoever is the best comic book director, I think James Gunn's the best writer of all of them. I think he does a really good job of understanding character, and he knows exactly how to play it off. I'm going to wrap up my general thoughts because we can go more in depth about it, and you can give your thoughts. But I'm saying it like this. If you were disappointed by this finale, I understand why you were disappointed, but I certainly wasn't, because I didn't build it up in my mind that we were getting a Superman level threat at the end. I didn't build it up that we were getting this big cameo. James Gunn, it's his job to hype it up, so you can't get mad at him for it. But
true,
he did do what he promised. He offered a big twist at the very end. Technically, too. And one of those we'll go more in depth about, because it's like my only complaint if this technically is the series finale.
We're probably going to agree on that one. Yeah, I know.
Which again, I don't completely hate the choice, but we'll get there.
I think we're on a pretty similar wavelength.
I loved this episode, and as a whole, it creates a really nice picture for season 2 to kind of just like tie it all together, and it's done in a very beautiful way. Go ahead and say that I'm wrong.
No. I love this episode. However, I think that here's the reason why I don't put it on as high of a pedestal, not as compared to you, just as high as I wanted to. You are so right. The character writing in this, phenomenal. The acting in this, phenomenal. Everything that they give us, I love all the plot decisions, or all is a stretch, but most of the plot decisions, actually, I think it makes total sense for where the characters were going. I think Adebayo confronting her wife, that makes sense. It's a logical conclusion to that storyline, because obviously that's a storyline that we need to wrap up, that they're not just going to randomly go back to in a movie or something. So
right.
We do need to wrap up some of those plot lines. Same with like the Chris and Harcourt, which also gives heart to where we end off the episode with Chris getting thrown into the prison. I just have two problems. And one's more minor than the other, and maybe one of them is just me being a little bit, I don't want to say delusional. So I'll start with the minor one. Was it just me, or did this feel like the shot composition and filmography of this episode felt a little different than the others in the way that they focused on certain aspects, like zooming in on character faces a little bit more than we typically get, or cutting around a little bit more. I'm not talking about the montages. I think the montages are fine. I'm just talking about in some of the moments, the way that they chose to shoot those moments. it wasn't bad. It didn't take me out of the moment. It just felt different than the rest of the season to me. And it just, I don't know. It was, am I crazy for thinking that? Did you notice that? Like,
I mean, I think that's just to each his own. You know, I don't think that you're crazy for saying that, but I think it's just like I didn't have a problem with it, but if you did, I mean, that it's just choice. Like at that point, it really just comes down to a choice thing. It's like what you like, what you didn't like, and if you felt off by it, you felt like you can't change that. You just felt off by it. It didn't ruin your
yeah.
experience, but it didn't like give you anything either. Sure, I get that.
It definitely didn't ruin my experience. It was just definitely like okay, why do we need to zoom in so close on Hardcore's face for this scene right now? That's a little weird. But it wasn't like oh, well, now I'm not emotional anymore because you ruined it. Like, it wasn't like that. It was just like okay, this feels a little bit, to me, it felt like they brought in a different director to direct this episode than all the other episodes. And it wasn't bad work. It just felt different than the way the directors did it previously. I'm not sure if that's the case. You're probably gonna look it up while I'm talking.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Go ahead and continue. I'm just looking it up right now.
My only other, I guess, complaint, if you want to call it that, with this episode is, so this is a supersized episode, technically. It's 58 minutes, but it's not really 58 minutes. I think it's only about 10 minutes longer than the other episodes of the season. It still felt a little rushed. I think if you want to give any credit to the people that are complaining, I do think that this could have been, give it 5-10 more minutes. Sorry. I think letting some of the moments breathe a little bit more. Again, I'm not talking about the montages. I think I try to avoid the internet as much as possible to hear specific complaints, but one that I did hear was, oh, it was full of montages. No, I think that makes sense. All the montages weren't like, oh, wow, this character changed so much over this short period of time. It all made sense, and we're kind of just moving through the motions. I do think that because you wrapped up so many storylines all in a single episode, there were some that didn't get as much time to breathe as I would have liked, because it felt very much like okay, let's wrap up this character. Okay, immediately skip to the next character, immediately skip to the next character. I don't hate the decision, and I'm glad that this episode was about 10 to 15 minutes longer than the others, because if this episode was the 25, 30-minute mark that the other episodes had been, then yeah, I probably would have had way bigger of a problem with it. I just think that cutting around a little bit too much to certain character beats wasn't my favorite decision. But again, the character beats that we got in those cuts really worked for me. I really think the Adebayo confronting her wife was great. You're right. I think Adebayo stole this episode for me, because she had the dialogue with her wife, and then she had that dialogue with Chris at the end that you already mentioned that was just so well done. Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think that the way that we leave Rick Flag's character at the end of this episode is so well done. It is.
Oh my god, we're gonna talk about that. Holy crap!
Talk about the big twist that James Gunn was talking about for this episode, and people did not realize, at least maybe this is just me. It was that. It was the Rick Flag Senior stuff. That was the big, oh my god, twist. And again, also harkening back to why James Gunn announced Man of Tomorrow before this season ended, because now we know where this is going and where we're going to see some of these characters again for sure. But I think that was just an expert good guy turned evil twist that really, I don't want to say caught me off guard, but I was really happy with.
Yes.
So that's my general thoughts. I'll go ahead and kick it for the back and forth, because I have a lot of back and forth for this.
No, let's start with the obvious one that we can both talk about, which is the ending. Let's get this out of the way, because I know you're going to agree with me on this. Do not hate the choice. The choice itself is really good, and I love it. That being said, why couldn't have that been the post-credit scene?
Yeah.
Why could that not have been after? Because here's the thing. If this is the finale of Peacemaker, I know that they're probably making like a checkmate show or a checkmate movie, or the characters are just going to pop up here and there. I know we're going to have to pay it off somehow, and they might just make a checkmate show and whatever. But if this is the finale of Peacemaker, why wouldn't you make that the scene with Flag and Chris and putting him into Salvation? Why not make that the post-credit scene? Because then you wrap up your show pretty good, and you end on a really high note, and then the post-credit scene sets you up for the future. The post-credit scene is your big twist. Because this episode didn't have a post-credit scene. Not technically.
It had the mid credit scene that was the Economos
Yeah,
continuing his dialogue
which
thing.
I guess is fine, but like my thing is like why not make that the post credit scene? Why not build your hype after the show's over, after we end on such a high note where everybody's together, everybody's building this organization. Checkmate's a big faction that's now going to rival against Argus and all these different places that are corrupt. You know, I just think that again, it's not the choice, and I thought the scene itself was really good, and I was tense, but like we had literally the last shot prior to that happening was all of them walking side by side. It actually makes you kind of emotional because you're seeing everybody who was at one point enemies or was at one point going after each other, or just knowing wherever a character was at the beginning of the season. All of these people are together, working together now, and it's really cool to see that. And then it's not 1 second later, there's a bag being put over Chris's head, thrown into the van, and you know where he's going. You know that it's going to build to that, but
Yeah.
it kind of ruined the high note that the show ended on. And I'm not saying it didn't end on, it still ended on a high note. It gave us like where we're going, but I just wish there was a post credit scene. I don't know. I don't know if you had any different thoughts about that. I didn't hate it. It just took me out of the moment.
I didn't really think about it all that much, to be honest, in the way that you are. I think that the decision to throw Chris into that dimension makes total sense. Obviously, I'm like, come on, why you gotta do my boy like that? But like, more from the sense of like, I'm looking out for the homie and not like why is this the choice that you made? Because I understand why they made this choice.
Right.
I just think that it not being an end credit scene or a post credit scene or whatever, I didn't really think about it all that much. Did I find it weird that we didn't get a post credit scene setting something up? A little bit, but I think that's because this scene was that post credit scene setting stuff up. So
Yeah.
where you place it for me is a little irrelevant just personally, but I can understand your complaint. I do think that you ended on such a high note with the walkout. And yeah, I did get a little emotional. I was like, wow. And then you see all the other characters coming in, and I'm like, this is really cool. And then Chris gets it back thrown over his head, and you're like, oh, wow, what the heck? Like,
it's
it
just
does
because
take
it's
you
immediate.
out of it a little bit, but
yeah. It literally is just because it's immediate. It's not like there's like a scene in between where, it might be a bit somber and we're talking to Flag first. I want to test out Planet Salvation or something. Like, it's not like we get like a chance to, it's like immediate. Like, we don't even get the chance to like breathe a little bit. And maybe that's why they did it. But in my opinion, I just think that was the wrong choice. I don't say that a lot about James Gunn. I just think that was the wrong spot to put that scene. It should have been a post-credit scene. It should have been after.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Again, wasn't as big of an issue for me in that way, but I do think that it is weirdly paced. And again, that goes back to my pacing problems from the beginning of this, maybe needing another episode to let some of those moments breathe a little bit more, but I don't think it entirely ruined anything.
No. I figured we could start with that because that was just like the easiest one. Let's start with the top of the episode.
Oh, you want to? Okay, you want to go through? Okay,
that's no. Sorry. Go ahead. If you have something you want to talk about, again, we're just bouncing around here. I'm not really fixated on one spot.
Since we're a segue from the last segment to this, that Rick Flag Senior turn in the way that they do it and the way that he's integrating himself with. I'll just say this: it is perfectly culminated in that boardroom scene and the dialogue that happens in that boardroom scene, calling Flag out for his hypocrisies and for turning into the villain. It is so well done, and it helps you put the pieces together of where his story was going. If you didn't reasonably, if you didn't realize where the story was going, it was him becoming the villain. It was him trying to fight under the guise of good, but slowly being corrupted by his hatred for Chris and Peacemaker. Because all of this anti-metahuman rhetoric that he's spewing really starts with Peacemaker, who, mind you, isn't a metahuman, and that is again put into blinding lights in that boardroom scene where it gets called out of what about non metahumans? And he has like his whole line of dialogue trying to excuse it in the sense of like, oh, well, we're gonna start with metahumans. And it's literally, you then cut to later in the episode, the first person that we put into the other dimension is a non-metahuman. It just shows that he's bullshitting. He is becoming just the villain. And I love that turn and the way that they do it with the corruption with Lex Luthor and the lines from Bordeaux in saying, "Oh, your good buddy Lex Luthor." And I don't know. I just wanted to set the stage with that. I have a lot more to talk about with it, but like,
Sure.
give me your thoughts, because like that stuff
Flag
really worked for me.
Flag is an interesting character this season, especially if you watch Creature Commandos, because you know it's from the get-go it's depicted that all he wants is revenge, and he's craved by revenge, and he's bent on revenge. I'm not saying that in his own mind he isn't doing this, because obviously he does want to protect the world from like metahumans. I'm not saying he doesn't still have that factor, but most of every single one of the actions that he has is because he is driven by revenge for the outcome of what happened in the Suicide Squad, because of the fact that Peacemaker killed his son. And you see him slowly becoming more and more like a villain, especially because, in the beginning he starts as somebody who goes, I just want to read the file. I don't want to know who killed my son. And, for a solid, I think it's like a year or 2 years. I don't know how long he actually is like the leader of Argus. It's pretty good. He is doing the cases normally. And he started off right. He answered the call. It just happened to be Christopher Smith. But he answered the call because he saw the portal dimension. And you don't really think anything of it. You think, oh, he just wants to stop it. No, he wants to use it.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. And I love this storytelling to watch Flag from go from being the good guy to being somebody who's blindsided by revenge so much that he becomes the very thing that he is fighting against. He becomes Lex Luthor.
Well, one of my favorite lines from this episode, again, it goes back to that boardroom scene of him being confronted and called out for the hypocrisy. And I can't remember the line exactly. I wish I wrote it down, but you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the line where it's like, well, Lex Luthor, he might be a bad guy, but his ideas aren't that bad. And you're like, the second that hits, you're like, holy shit, I can't
Like
believe
he's gone.
he said that. Because
like he's gone.
a big part of his entire mindset of this episode is, again, you said it perfectly. He wants to stop this portal to prevent another event like with what happened in Superman. Only to find out that no, that's not true whatsoever. He just wants to finish what Lex Luthor started. Maybe a little bit more humane, or he views it as more humane because they have a whole world to go to instead of these tiny little cubes. But he doesn't have a problem with Lex Luthor whatsoever. And I think that's just such a genius way to wrap Rick Flag Sr. into this, while also showing what some people's mindsets of Lex Luthor are and why a Lex Luthor-like character can win the presidency. I'm not saying that that's what we're going to get in Man of Tomorrow, but I definitely see James Gunn doing a Lex Luthor as president storyline. And these moments are what sets that up so perfectly on showing you Lex Luthor's so evil. We view him as so evil, but not everyone does. And this is why. This is how you get to that point. And it's just, I don't know, it's so good.
It's well written and it's well crafted and it's a good character moment, good character development. This is this is just a direction I wasn't thinking they were going to go. I knew that it was going to be
either. Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a story that was about Flag wanting his revenge against Peacemaker. When Gunn says that you can kind of have an idea on where the DCU is going. Like, you think about some things that like Plan Salvation. Okay, we're probably leaning towards something with that, and Checkmate being a thing now, that maybe something with that. You don't think about the idea that it was the government, with Argus at least, the government would become a corrupt agency, and that impact is going to have on the DCU. I wasn't thinking about that at all, and again, I just think that it's such an interesting moment because it's something I wasn't thinking about, but something that I go, oh my gosh, that is really going to have like Man of Tomorrow is going to be very interesting.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
going to be very.
And I think people again, I try to stay offline, but I saw one other main complaint that I want to touch on that fits perfectly into this conversation where we are is there were a lot of people online that I saw saying, "Oh, well, James Gunn said that this sets up the future of the DCU so perfectly, and now I'm more confused than ever." Were you not paying attention to the episode and what it
Yeah.
set up with Lex Luthor, with Rick Flag, with the way that the government is starting to view metahumans and the way that is obviously going to carry into Man of Tomorrow? Like, again, I'm not gonna, I don't want to call you stupid, but like, rewatch the episode and think about it because
It's
I think that
yeah.
it's pretty obvious the direction that they're taking it, and I personally love that direction.
I think it's just because Gunn had said it was like, oh, you're gonna have a clear vision, which I think when people think it's a clear vision, it's like, oh, they're just gonna straight up tell us what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
And people often forget that that is one way that your show just ends up horrible, is
correct.
telling and not showing. And it's shown throughout the entire season. There's a build. You see the government become more corrupt and become different. Again, it's the whole reason let's talk about a character that I felt like was completely unprecedented to have any sort of character arc, and then got one and somehow actually worked in some regard. And that was
yeah.
Bordeaux. Watching the entire episode as Flag becomes more and more power hungry, like, okay, we're going into this portal, go through each individual door, go through every door, and he's sacrificing people.
God,
just
that
to
was
find
such an insane sequence of. I want to talk about that sequence in detail, but we'll save that for after the Bordeaux conversation.
I just it her turn really represents the idea that is setting up going forward, because again, still going off of your complaint, is that the government is becoming more corrupt, so much so that her herself, who believed in Flag, maybe even loved Flag. I don't know fully what the extent of their relationship is.
Yeah,
That's also part of the arc where it's like, okay, what was clear? Like initially it was like, okay, you just really trusted him and you would have done anything to get your revenge on Peacemaker. That's something you said earlier. It was like anything for you to get your revenge on Peacemaker. And now it's like, oh, I'm turning against this because he's doing something horrible.
because she realizes that it's not about the revenge against Peacemaker that she was willing to help out with. So much so that she turncoats a complete 180 into then helping Peacemaker.
Right. And so it's interesting. I think her character specifically is the one. Well, Judo Master is the other one. We'll talk about Judo Master in a minute. But her character is the one where it's just like the most out there turn and arc, and not in a bad way. It wasn't rushed. I don't even say it was necessarily rushed. They literally gave it the entire episode to focus on it, and they had long enough of a runtime to do it and pull it off. It just was just like, I wasn't expecting it. Like, again, going into this episode, we knew nothing. We didn't know what was going to happen, but I wasn't expecting that. And I'm like, oh, I don't hate that actually. Like, that wasn't bad at all. But I'm just like, it just caught me off guard to the where I'm like, I just don't know. I wasn't expecting that.
I think that you're right. I do think it is okay to call it a little rushed because in terms of I don't want to say the entire arc was encapsulated in this single episode because it wasn't. You do get moments with Bordeaux previously, but seeing that become the turn that it does, maybe we should have gotten a little bit more hints of her disbelief in Rick Flag Sr.'s motives a little bit earlier on because you don't really get that. We get the polar opposite. In fact, when he's beating on Peacemaker, she is so not happy, but like gung ho for that moment. That most of the turn happens in this episode, but I also think that it's fair to enjoy it still because the way that they set it up with this prolonged episode, with the montage of Rick Flag Sr., because I guess I'll use this as a segue in like a middling period to talk about the sequence with all the doors, because with that sequence with all the doors, that's when she has the turncoat moment. That's when she's the one putting her life on the line, going into these portals with all these other people, watching them get their faces ripped off, eaten by zombies. It is terrifying, and it is something that it's because she doesn't know the reason and because Rick won't give her the reason that she's like starting to question what's going on and why this is such a big deal, because we also see while all these characters are going and dying, not just putting their life on the line, dying in a horrible way, they got attacked by nerds. Those were evil nerds. And then we cut to Rick Flag Sr., their dude's doing coke in a government building. And he's letting them and partying with them and celebrating with people that we all viewed as the enemy in the last movie that we came. And that's when she starts to put the pieces together of, oh, this isn't altruistic anymore. This isn't about revenge. Maybe, and I think that's why her working with Peacemaker makes sense, because her biggest thing against Peacemaker was what he did to Rick. Now she sees that Rick was overplaying the amount of care that he had for Peacemaker. He was using it as an excuse to further his actual plot. Or you can view it as the other way, where his hatred for metahumans was an excuse to do Peacemaker. I think both are a valid way to look at it. I think
both feed into each other. Both feed into each other.
Exactly. I just think that Bordeaux's turn, while be it mostly in this episode, I think still makes like total sense.
But it is fair to say that it is rushed, because it is just like, it is tagged on at the end. And you're like, oh, okay. So I don't know. Again, not bad. I don't hate it. It's not. There's nothing wrong with it. It just caught me off guard, completely off guard.
But segueing into the portal sequence, that was it was hard to watch. Because you expect when you're going into all these portals, I'm like, oh, this is where the cameos are going to come in. This is where the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness going into universes is going to happen. And then the first universe we go into is a guy going into Candyland and getting his face brutally ripped off. A guy that in the last scene we were making fun of now gets his face ripped off by nerds. Not like nerds like me, who everyone calls me out and says I
like nerds, the candy, like literal nerds. Candy. Yeah. I just have one question, and this pertains nothing to like helpful to the conversation. When Flurry was on the ground with the nerds beating up on him, were you hoping he was going to die, or have you kind of like given up on Flurry as far as like your hatred for him because of what they've done with him?
I think my hatred of Langston has kind of subsided a little bit, to be honest. I am not going to retract any statement that I've made previously. Was I expecting him to die? Yes. Would I have been happy about it? That's where I think it does get a little complicated, and that's where I'll give credit to James Gunn. He made me, and I think the interesting character thing that they do with this, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because I do think that this is interesting. You want him to die in that sequence. And the reason that you want him to die is not because, like me, who has what some would consider an unreasonable hatred of Langston. It's because legitimately the episode that we see previous, or the sequence that we see previously, is him absolutely dogging on this dude who doesn't deserve it. That just serves his character and who he is, and why I view him as just an annoying piece of shit. I think that sequence, though, in the reason why I'm actually not as mad, leads into why he then joins Peacemaker. Because his character growth, again, his character turn is a little less abrupt than the previous one.
It's more subtle for him.
It is more subtle, but you get the moments like with him complimenting Economos for booking Peacemaker and actually showing that he's an ass, but he's not evil. And I think that this sequence goes to show that perfectly. It goes to show that he still has a heart, because he's disturbed, really deeply disturbed by the fact that the guy that he was just making fun of is now lying dead on the ground with his face ripped off. And he acts it really well and shows that fear that then leads into him joining Peacemaker.
Correct. Yeah.
So, was I expecting him to die? Yes. Was I hoping that he died? I can't lie and say that there wasn't a little piece of me that would have been happy. I am man enough to admit, though, I am happy that they didn't, because I think that it helps further the point that even someone like Langston can be redeemed because of how evil Rick Flag Sr. is.
Well, and again, it's set up early on, and again, you were more annoyed by Langston early on. He wasn't evil. He's not a bad person.
He was never evil.
He's just a moron who can be annoying at times, and it's just a complete jerk. No different than what Chris is. No different than what Chris was in the Suicide Squad. Like they're kind of the same people to a certain extent. And so first off, I feel like the reason that Tim Meadows survived is because I feel like out of everybody who's on the Checkmate roster, it's going to be most likely him and Amelia who are going to make there's like cameos in movies here and there. They're probably the most likely to make cameos because I know I know that Tim Meadows would probably just be like, yeah, sure, I'll show up on set one day, whatever, sure.
Well,
and then
of course, Hardcourt is just James Gunn's wife, so
yeah, so she can show up wherever. I feel like those two are going to make the most appearances for Checkmate, and I feel like that's also why they chose him because it's like he's a recognizable face. He's somebody who can pop in. They go, oh, it's Tim Meadows. We like Tim Meadows. He was from Peacemaker, and it's like something that you can use. So I feel like they're going to use him a lot going into the DCU, just as like a face where it's like, okay, you know who he works for, you know what he's from. And plus, when Tim Meadows wants, he can provide some comedy, and it is pretty funny. It can be really funny at times.
it can be.
But the portal sequence was a segue to that, just because, like, I don't know, man. Some of these portals were insane,
dude. Spider skulls in flames. What? Okay.
How about the zombie apocalypse? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
holy crap!
We get a scene straight out of a Doom video game.
Yeah,
we get evil nerds. Like, I think a lot of people are gonna be upset that we didn't get any like, oh, they open a door and Grant Gustin is standing there, or they open a door and freaking who else is Henry Cavill is standing there. I'm so glad that they didn't, because that wouldn't the way that they set up the reason for the portals to actually being explored, it would make no sense whatsoever for this to be a cameo fest.
Funny enough, I feel like you saying that if they even had one cameo, I would have been majorly disappointed in the show. Because I'm going to say something that's a hot take. I'm going to say it right now, and I think it's a hot take. Don't hate me when I say this. First off, it doesn't beat Spider-Verse. It doesn't beat either Spider-Verse. I think Peacemaker has the best use of the multiverse that I have seen to date, because it doesn't rely on the multiverse and rely on cameos, but it uses the multiverse to progress the story in a very positive way. Unlike a lot, and again, I don't hate No Way Home. I don't hate Deadpool and Wolverine. You know how much I really love both those films. Deadpool specifically. You know how much I really enjoy.
Yeah.
This is the best use of the multiverse, and is one of the, like, Deadpool made fun of it actually, about how it's just been miss after miss after miss and whatever. Like, they make fun of that. Peacemaker is the first time I've seen them do it, other than Spider-Verse, where I go, that's not a miss. They use that exactly right. Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I haven't seen in years, which I actually kind of want to rewatch because I really enjoyed that movie when it came out.
It's one of my all-time movies. It
used
is so good.
The multiverse correctly.
Yes.
I'm not saying Peacemaker used it on the same level and scope as two very different things. But Peacemaker, I think, also used it very right.
In a superhero context,
yes.
Because I think I think that movie is the best example of the multiverse ever. I genuinely believe that it is.
Again, it's a hard comparison.
Superhero property or anything like that. Peacemaker in a superhero context, I think the only example that you can put above this is the animated Spider-Verse movies. I think it is actually really fair because they don't use it as a way to shoehorn unnecessary cameos. They use it as a natural way to explain plot threads and as a way that normal people would use it. Because here's the thing, you're not going to open every door that you open isn't going to have a Grant Gustin or I heard that James Gunn mentioned that he wanted Deadpool to be in this movie. Maybe he would have been behind one, or this show. Maybe he would have been behind it. Like, I'm glad that he didn't, because every door shouldn't be that, because that's not the reality of the multiverse. The reality of the multiverse is there's so many different possibilities that, yeah, you're going to have a flaming lava island with skulls. You're going to have a Candyland with evil nerds. You're going to have all these different things that are going to be wacky and wild, and not all of them are going to be a cameo fest.
Funny, you brought up the Deadpool thing, and I was going to make a joke about how that would have been the only excuse. Like, if that, no, like, seriously though, let's talk shop about that, because that's actually really important that he said that. James Gunn said, I wanted Deadpool to be behind that door, and that it actually was a possibility at one point, meaning he had to have had talks with the companies to make that happen, meaning the door is not closed on the idea of a Marvel DC crossover.
They recently did a Marvel DC crossover in the comic books. Like, that was a pretty recent storyline that they had, and they have so many different versions of it. They have Marvel versus DC. They have the amalgam universe, which is, if you don't know what the amalgam universe is, it's when you take two characters and mash them together. You have a Batman mixed with Wolverine. You have a Storm mixed with Thor, I believe. Or not Storm. You have a... I can't... Yeah. Oh, I think it was Storm mixed with Wonder Woman is what it was. So you have all these different, like, mashup characters. I don't think we're going to get that. However, if you put James Gunn behind the helm, that'd be insane to see a amalgam universe storyline. Or maybe you just open a door and freaking Wolverine mixed with Batman is standing there. And I'm glad, because they left off on a bad foot, Marvel and James Gunn. They did.
Yeah.
He was fired because of BS reasons.
Sure.
And I'm glad to hear that it is a possibility for some interesting moments later on. Maybe Secret Wars. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, no, I agree. That is a good conversation, and I agree. I think that this is a really good use of the multiverse.
It's also a conversation I did not expect to have. Like, it's not something that where, like, because I read that, like, I don't know when I read it, but I read that, like, James Gunn had, like, said that, and I go,
I saw it was like an IGN headline.
I was like, that means that the door isn't closed, that he has to have had conversations. Maybe it's not with the companies themselves, because obviously James Gunn can't do everything. Kevin Feige can't do everything. At the end of the day, it comes down to Warner Brothers and Disney, and if they were like, hey, can we work together on this project? Can we share properties? That's what it comes down to, obviously. But that means that the door isn't closed on that idea, that there is a potential idea, even if it's like not a movie, but it's like, hey, Peacemaker can show up in Secret Wars as a really nice segue to be like, oh my God, I'm not joking. We're talking about like X-Men and Fantastic Four coming into the MCU, and we're talking about all these things that like the Fox had. If DC came into the MCU or the MCU came into DC, that would be the biggest. Like, there is nothing that can top that. That
moment would be bigger than Endgame. I'm calling it now. Whether they set it up well or not, that singular moment will be the biggest moment in superhero history. Because again, they've done crossovers in the comics before. There has never, to my knowledge, been a on-screen, silver screen or big screen moment where a DC character and a Marvel character interact. They've referenced each other. In fact, we had references to Spider-Man in this season. Like, they've referenced each other, but we've never had a crossover. That moment, I don't think you'll be able to contain the pop that will get out of me. I will lose my mind if that happens.
Before we get to two characters that I want to talk about, because this whole season has been building basically around the two characters, let's talk about Judo Master quickly, because that one is really just out of nowhere and just a turn. You see the seeds planted, but unlike Bordeaux, like between Bordeaux and Langston, I feel like Judo Master is more so like that is completely out there. They did plant things, but it's more out there than those two. I liked it. I didn't hate it. It was just completely like when he was in the line at the end, I went, oh, Judo Master's with them. I'm like, that's really cool. Especially to know, like, even from the first season where everybody was to now, it's like, that's actually really cool. Judo Master's the one character this season where I go, they do give him something, but I feel his character's the only one where it's not a big enough, like, character arc or twist to where I'm like, that didn't fully work. Judo Master was the one I'm like, it just didn't fully come together for me. It makes sense, and I can see what you did, but I feel like you could have given more time. You talked about giving them 5 or 10 more minutes in this episode. Give it some of it to Judo Master. Like, I'm fully being serious about that, just because I think that it would add a lot. It would.
So here's the thing. I can't disagree with you because I don't think that you're wrong. I just didn't have as big of a problem with it because they did plant some seeds. Because most of the seeds were planted last season, in my opinion. Not even this season. The only seeds that we get for his turn in this season is the fact that we have him standing up for Peacemaker and his friends and the lines of dialogue with Adebayo, that's most of the setup, which,
yeah,
in all defense, is more than most other setups we got.
It's more than what Judo Master had last season.
Well,
so
here's the reason why I say that most of Judo Master's setup for his turn happened last season. Judo Master only was viewed as evil because he thought that Peacemaker and Adebayo in the gang was stopping the world's salvation. He was convinced by the butterflies through whatever means into thinking that they were going to save the world. And that's what made him evil, because the way that the butterflies were going about it was viewed as evil. I think that that's fair. Yeah, it was evil, but I think that him turning, because he's not turning on his morals, he's not changing as a character, he just now views Rick Flag Sr. as more of a threat, like he viewed Peacemaker and Argus originally against the butterflies. So this isn't really a character turn, he's just going to the other side of the aisle where he's fighting against Argus.
Sure. Again, I didn't hate it. I just think my points are valid. I'm just like,
no. Again, I think that they're valid. I'm not trying to hate.
No. I you even said that. I'm just like,
that for me is why I didn't hate it all that much. And when I saw Judo Master, I was like, that makes sense, because I knew that Judo Master would be in it 5 seconds before he was, or maybe it was 2 seconds, because you see Langston first, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes some sense. We're probably gonna get Judo Master as well, because if you're going off of the character turns and who would appear here, Judo Master is the only other logical character to show up in this lineup, if that's what we're going for.
Let's, now that that's kind of taken care of, because I really needed to address that one. For me, what was the most emotional dynamic in this whole show, and it got a backflash sequence in this episode. Smith and Hardcourt, we found out what happened on the boat, and they talked about it all season, but it also wasn't like a question in my mind of, oh, I wonder what happened to the boat. So when they showed it, I went, I'm glad they showed that.
Yeah, I think you could obviously put 2 and 2 together. You don't need to be a genius to know what happened on the boat.
No.
But I think it was still nice to see. I didn't hate that we saw it, because like sometimes you get shown moments that you're like, why did you show us that? Like we knew what happened. We didn't need to do that to put 2 and 2 together to actually make this an emotional payoff. And while I still think that that's a valid point, I do think you still could have gotten the same emotional payoff without seeing it. I'm not upset that we did see it.
Yeah. I think that Hardcourt and Chris's relationship just in the entire show is just, it's really beautiful to see. And that the last dialogue they share with each other, I just sat there and went, I am blown away by how good this writing is, because it literally is just Chris walking out like he was a broken person this entire episode. This is actually the one episode of Peacemaker John Cena is in the least and has the least amount of dialogue, because he feels like a broken person. It's all dedicated to the people around him, and them uplifting him to become the person he is. I love how the first thing he does right after, pretty much being like, hey, nothing was your fault. You all are important to our lives, and you lift up our lives. The first thing he does is walk out the door. Didn't mean anything to you. I'm like, okay, well, he's already back to this.
I actually really liked that moment, because it shows that Chris is growing, but he's still Chris.
Yes.
Like it shows that you're not going to get a complete 180 on a character that a lot of people enjoy the quirky weirdness of. It shows that no, this is still Chris. Like, he's still gonna be annoying and ask stupid questions. He's gonna have going back into into his motel and dancing and celebrating. Like,
Well, and like it was like it's funny because when Chris starts dancing, like when he shut the doors, like he's gonna freak out. He's gonna have a moment where he just like falls on dance or something. Like something happens where he freaks out. I'm like, okay, he did it. That's good.
Yep.
But like the way it's written and the way it's acted between the two of them, like it's such a feel good moment. And it's almost like a weight lifted off your chest, because the whole season you want Hardcourt and Cena, you want Hardcourt and Chris to get together.
Yeah.
And so when she just says the words, "Of course it did. Of course it meant something," like. Because again, that's the one question that Chris has been asking since the very first episode. Did this mean anything to you?
Yeah.
it's such a weight off your chest, and it's such a very beautiful character resolution moment. And then you know, I don't know how long the actual time, it might be a month, 2 months, however much it is for them to set up checkmate and whatnot as like just a headquarters. You see them go to another concert, and obviously they're playing at the concert of
The people who played the opening.
People who play the opening. Yeah. And it's the opening theme. And you know, we talked about it briefly, but that whole montage sequence is just filled with so many beautiful character moments. And it's when I was starting to get more emotional. I didn't like cry or anything, but I was just emotionally satisfied because
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Like, I didn't cry, but there was enough payoff there that I was like, I feel happy. I feel
I'm content with where this is. Yeah, again, John with Eagly.
Yeah, I think my personal favorite character dynamic in this season of Peacemaker, and honestly in Peacemaker as a whole, is Adebayo and Chris. Like, I'd put it above Hardcore and Chris for me, just because on it, like that, we already talked about it a little bit, but that speech that Adebayo gives Chris, it just hit so hard. It was exactly what he needed to hear. It is exactly what I feel like us as fans have been wanting to say to Chris. Like, at least me, everything that she said, I was like, you preach, girl. Like, this is exactly what I want to be hearing. And it makes so much sense coming from Adebayo of all characters, because she is, besides Adrian, his best friend. He even calls her his best friend multiple times throughout the season. And Hardcore's not emotionally mature enough to give that conversation. Economos, I don't hate his character arc in this episode. We can talk about it. I don't think there's much to talk about, but Economos isn't going to give a speech like that. It was going to come from Adebayo, and when it does come from Adebayo, and the way that she delivers it, the emotion behind the performance, the weight behind her words, it just hit.
Yeah, John's arc. I guess we're talking about it. Let's talk about all three of them really quickly, or I guess the two of them. Let's talk about the two of them because we already talked about Adebayo a little bit. John's arc is very subtle and it's very small, but Adebayo says it in her speech, and you come to realize, oh, that was his arc. Like, that was completely, and it's the idea that he's risked his life multiple times for Chris, and Economos is the biggest wuss of all time.
Yep.
And so, like, when you realize that, you're like, no, that's true. Like, that's his arc. It's him, like, he's standing up for his friend, and he actually like likes Chris in some regard, which also piggies back off of season 1, because that was their whole relationship, was John coming to like Chris in some regard. Vigilante is and this isn't a negative, is the only character in the entire show, and that's why I'm kind of glad that they kept it that for season 2, who doesn't have a character arc. He doesn't have, like, he has emotional moments and he gets good moments to act, and he's solely comedic relief. That is correct. Vigilante's whole bit, is that he's solely comedic relief. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't add anything. But I also, like, for his character specifically, I don't feel like you need to add anything. Like, he is just a happy-go-lucky superhero who wants to beat up people and do something that's right, I guess.
And you do have moments. They're not as big, but him talking to Adebayo in his basement, her telling him, hey, you need to be less mean to your mom, him coming around on the whole blood money idea, him, like, realizing with his dynamic with Peacemaker. Obviously, I don't think there's that much depth behind the growth there, but there are moments,
right? But it's just not
heartfelt. It's just not as big and bombastic. Yeah,
it's just not an arc. Again, he gets moments like, again, in the flashback sequence, Chris talks to Hardcore, and Hardcore's like, "What, is he in love with you?" And he goes, "No." He just didn't really have the best older brother growing up, and so he kind of views Chris as an older brother.
Yeah.
And that also piggybacks back to the conversation with Adebayo. I was like, well, you got to be nicer to your mom. Like, I don't know who's older, if it's Adebayo or Vigilante, but it's viewed as a very family sibling relationship in that entire scene. And so his character is the one that doesn't get an arc the entire show, but it doesn't need that. Also, he has one of my favorite sequences of just absolute laughter. I was dying, is because it's just out of nowhere. They're all like surrounding Chris. He goes to get in his car, and out of nowhere, Vigilante just knees him to the face and tases him. He goes, I got him. Like, what
So,
are you doing?
It's so vigilante coded. That's the reason why it's so funny. It's
Oh my
so
God.
coded to his character.
He's also in full costume too, and I'm like, why are you in costume for this? You're using a taser. You could be in normal gear. It's funny. That's all.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts on this because I know we kind of got to move on. We got to move to Tron in a minute, but
Yep.
just saying this again. For those that were disappointed by this episode, I hear you. You're wrong, but I hear you. I can't predict what your mind made up, but if it was made up to be anything other than what this episode gave us, like over the top, like trying to one up last episode, then you just kind of had the wrong mindset. You were never going to get that based on what this season set up. And I know that because that's what I was thinking about the entire time from last week till now. I think that this episode is flawlessly written, flawlessly acted. I think, even though I don't necessarily like that because it is the series finale, the ending of the show, I wish it was a post-credit scene. I think everything in this entire episode was done so carefully, but in a positive way. Like, it's not careful and it doesn't take risks. It takes risks, but it takes the careful risks that we need. Like, it's stuff that we know is going to pay off, like good character moments and good writing. And it gives a phenomenal payoff to a show that we have been watching over 2 seasons.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that my minor issues with this does not take away from how well this episode was written. I am going to just echo what Carson said with, if you thought that this season was going to go in any other direction, I don't understand what your expectations were. I don't know who you thought the big cameos were going to be. This was clearly a character focused season and we got a payoff to our characters.
Yeah.
If you did not understand what this was setting up for the future of the DCU, I encourage you to watch it again because it very clearly, for me, and it seems like Carson, sets up where we see this show going, where I see the future of DC going, because we have to set up Man of Tomorrow somehow, and this sets it up so well. So I think that I don't think this is my favorite episode, but I think looking at this season holistically, I would agree. I'd put it above season 1. I think that this is a better season than season 1. I still think season 1 was really good. I do think that this was better. Had a little bit of a rocky start for me, but so did season 1. So,
yeah, hold on. Like, the last thing I'll say and touch on is like the problems that were like heavy in season 1, where it's like James Gunn unhinged can go over the top to a distracting point. That's very prevalent in like early episodes of season 2.
yes.
Like, that didn't go away. It still is over the top, like with the nudity, and sometimes the violence can be over the top. And so, like, if that wasn't your thing from season 1, it doesn't really change here. But
that wasn't my main problem. It was a little bit though, the James Gunn going over the top.
I'm just saying that because again, we talked about season 1 weeks ago, but like now that we've like sat down and watched this whole thing together, like it is important to look back at like those were our complaints from season 1. They weren't necessarily fixed. They did get better, but it was kind of left earlier on. And it really was just like the first 2 episodes that were like kind of over the top with all of it.
You know, I think, again, I encourage you to watch this season again if you did not like this season finale, because I think you missed something. But that's just our thoughts on Peacemaker series finale. Now, moving into our next and final topic.
Thank you for joining us for the podcast. I'm going to talk to you later. Goodbye.
I don't know how to kick this off, so Carson, just tell me, what are your thoughts? You've already kind of spoiled them for us, but let's.
So I'm being completely honest here. If Minecraft movie didn't exist, this would be the worst movie of the year. My friend, I went with a plethora of people, all of whom are very different wavelengths on films. I went with like 2 people who, you know, usually are negative on movies like this. I went with 2 people who are more like us, where we can usually be positive on like superhero films and certain films that, you know, maybe we didn't hate as much. Maybe they weren't the best and we acknowledge that, but we still had a fun time with them. And I went with somebody who really just doesn't care. And he's like, I just wanted to watch a movie. Perfectly fine. And we all walked out of the theater, and somebody went, "So, what was the theme of the movie?" And I just suddenly, under my breath, and everybody heard it go, "Ass." Like, just completely under my breath. And everybody like laughed, and they were like, "No, but you're actually right though. Tron Ares is a disappointing follow-up to Tron Legacy, while at the same time not being a follow-up to Tron Legacy. It is a film that lacks so much in the writing specifically. It is some of the worst writing I've seen this year. Maybe the worst. Again, if my Minecraft movie is a unique example here because it's bad, but Minecraft movie wasn't trying to be the best thing ever. It wasn't trying to be a great written project. It wasn't trying to do any of this. It was just bad, but it was so fun that it was bad. You know, you could have a fun time with it even though it was bad. Tron Ares, you can't even have a fun time with it because it takes itself way too seriously in a film that is just complete shit. Jared Leto and Evan Peters are the best acted parts in that movie. And that's saying something because Jared Leto, I don't really like as an actor. There's only one project I've seen him in that I've gone, that's really good. And that's Blade Runner 2049. That's it. Evan Peters, who I usually like in a movie, he's fine here. He's good at playing a jerk, but he's also written so horribly that it just doesn't make sense. The plot itself is all over the place. The biggest the biggest compliment I can give to this movie is that the concept, the very early concept, and everybody agreed with me in my group, by the way, when we said this. You can see the signs of a film that actually could have been very interesting, but they chose to tell the most emotionless, lackluster, garbage dumpster fire film. You know, I won't even say it's that. It's just the reason it's also as bad as it is because you can't even make fun of how bad it is. It's just boring. It's legit on the same level of, oh my God, what's the film that I watched and I just was miserable the entire time? Morbius. I was so miserable. It's funny enough, also starring Jared Leto. Morbius was so boring. I couldn't even make fun of it. And I just wanted to kill myself the entire time I was in that movie theater watching it.
Yeah, I refuse to watch that movie. I don't even want to get
don't. I'm telling you don't. And it's the same thing here. And it really is just disappointing because I don't think Tron Legacy is perfect. I don't think it's a good movie, but I can at least say it's fun. And I had a great time watching some of the practical action sequences in it. And when it was CGI, it wasn't the worst thing ever. Tron Ares is just, it's not a good movie. It's not. And it's a disappointment because I know that this is like a franchise that some people do like. And even those people are now unanimously going, it's not good. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, so Tron Ares is one of my favorite movies of the year. I'm going to start out by saying that I'm being fully straight up honest. Tron Ares is one of my favorite movies of the year.
It's not.
I cross my heart, swear to die, let Zeus strike me down right now if I'm lying. Granted, I'm in an apartment building, so that's not very possible.
You're not being serious right now, right?
No, I am. I am being dead serious. I had so much fun with Tron. Like I'm smiling right now because I genuinely enjoyed this movie.
Are you high? Sorry, no, give me, please.
Cross my heart. This is not a bit. I genuinely had so much fun with this movie.
Go ahead and give your general thoughts.
So I'm going to start this off by saying I have seen the other Tron movies, the most recent being Tron Legacy. However, it has been a little while. So most of this evaluation comes as a standalone movie. This is not its role in the greater Tron universe because ultimately Tron isn't a series that I care all that much about how it connects and intertwines in the storylines. I think that you can go into this movie without even having seen the other Tron movies and still understand well enough what's going on. So this is more of where my perspective comes in on this. This movie, is exactly what I thought it was going to be, but better. So here's the funny thing, and I'm going to start off by saying I've said this before. I try to avoid reviews. I have not watched a full review of this movie. However, I will say I am well aware that every reviewer online, for the most part, is shitting on this movie. If you read the comments section, though, on Tron Ares posts, the general public is loving this movie. Like, the general public, for the most part, not universally, there is a lot of people hating on it. There's also a lot of people enjoying this movie, and I'm one of them. This movie is exactly what I expected because, first of all, this is one of the best soundtracks in movie history. Nine Inch Nails knocked it out of the park. This movie sounds amazing. The CGI is done really well. There were only a few moments that I was like, okay, that's a little weird, but granted, that's just with every blockbuster nowadays. They don't always have the best CGI of all time, so it's more forgivable. But the way that they switch between the digital worlds, the acting in this movie, I think is pretty good. I don't think anyone's going to be winning awards for this, but I think that this is the type of character that Jared Leto needs to be playing because Jared Leto isn't great at giving emotionally deep performances. Let's just call it out there. This is a performance that does not call for an emotionally deep performance. This is a performance where you're supposed to be flat, where you're supposed to sound like a robot, because he essentially is. He's a computer program. He is a machine learning neural network that has become sentient, and he gives a flat performance because that's exactly what someone who's learning to feel emotion is going to be. So I think Jared Leto does a really good job of giving us that. The rest of the cast, they turn in performances. Again, they're not my favorite performances of all time, but I wasn't going into this movie expecting Emmy Award-winning performances. So from that nature, I was not let down whatsoever. I actually found the plot really interesting. I'm going to start off with that line of I saw a lot of people online, or at least I should say a few specific people online, talking about how they were really disappointed that this movie was very pro AI. First of all, you haven't seen the other Tron movies. Second of all, this is not a pro AI. One of the biggest plot lines of this entire movie is how terrifying it can be for AI to go against its directive and turn against its people. The only pro AI rhetoric in here, and I'm going to rant for a second because this pisses me off so much. And I'm going to post a TikTok about this just because I'm so genuinely annoyed by this. AI is terrifying. What are my credentials? I have a degree in AI. I studied AI for 4 years in college. I've had an interest in AI for a long time. I am qualified to a degree to talk about this. AI is terrifying. Sora AI, something that's going around right now, which is able to make anime sequences just out of that stuff is terrifying. Stealing from artists is terrifying. It is unfortunate and bad that a lot of people are losing their jobs to AI for a objectively worse product, especially in creative forms. However, AI is so misrepresented and misunderstanding because the only pro AI rhetoric that I read out of this movie is the actual genuine useful uses of AI. It is the cancer research, it is the agricultural research, it is the actual, not AI in the sense of stealing art from artists or removing work. It's no, I'm just going to say it. We're not going to be able to solve a cure for cancer without AI. It's just not humanly possible. We need machine networks, and not neural networks necessarily, but to a degree neural networks, to solve these complex issues that are very difficult for humans to solve. So from that perspective, yes, it's pro AI, but that's not the scary AI. It's anti the scary AI. It is anti the AI that gains sentience and is terrifying. You can say, oh, well, that's not true because it says that Jared Leto, his whole thing is that he doesn't want to be a computer program. It's that he wants to be a human. He wants to experience the futility of being a human being and experiencing the joys that life has. That is anti-AI. If you don't read that as anti-AI, you're not thinking. Because that is exactly what that is. It is a character who realizes that being an AI is shit and wants to live as a human, wants to be in the futility of human life. That is a great arc and not pro AI. So I know that's more than just my general thoughts, but I wanted to get that rant out of the way because it pisses me off so much, the misrepresentation that AI has in society and the, I guess, misplaced fear, because AI should be feared. It very much should. Losing
Sure.
jobs is bad. Stealing from artists is bad. Stealing work in general is bad. But the AI that's curing cancer and helping us solve the hunger crisis and things like that is good. And I think people saying that it's not are stupid. I'm going to call you stupid. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Actually, no, I'm not. I'm not sorry. You are stupid. So that is my rant. I really enjoyed this movie. I'm curious to get into our back and forth thoughts because that was not my general thoughts. That was a rant. But no, I genuinely thought this was a good movie. I will say, calling it a good movie is a stretch. Saying I had a really good fucking time with this movie is a different story, because I messaged some of my friends after this. I have 2 friends who are huge Tron fans. Tron is like in their top series of all time. And I told them, I was like, I can fully understand that this is a flawed movie. This is far from perfect. It is still a really good time. So, yeah. Carson, what, like,
No, I look, I told my friend about halfway through the movie because I could predict every plot point that was coming and I knew what was happening. I told him, look, I'll be completely honest. If you turned off all the noise except the music, because I do give it this, like, it's not Daft Punk, it's 9 Inch Nails. Music is not bad. It's not as good as Daft Punk, but it's certainly not bad. I think it fits okay. And when they play the Daft Punk Tron theme, I'm like, oh, that's classic. I like that. It's really good. I like that. If you were to turn off all the sound, all the character dialogue, and you just had the music and you just watched the movie, you could have a pretty fun time with it. Do you know how stupid that is that I'm even saying that, though? Do you know how stupid of an option that is?
This pisses me off. I'm gonna tell. There's something that you have a problem with that I just don't understand, and that is going into a movie for enjoyment purposes.
I
Because
did.
no,
I went to this film for
you did.
enjoyment purposes.
Here's the thing. I can't remember what movie it was, but we had a conversation about a movie where it is very similar. And I knew this conversation would be very similar. You had a line where you said that movies shouldn't always be fun. You don't want movies to go in and just have fun and turn your brain off. That is this movie, and that is why I knew that you would hate this movie, because yes, this is a movie where you do have to turn your brain off a little bit and have fun, but it does such a good job of giving you that. If you go into this movie expecting the most character depth, mind-blowing sequences of all time, no shit, you're not going to get it. If you went in expecting that, you're wrong. But
I
if you
get
say
that.
this is a bad movie because you can't enjoy the good and the fun and the soundtrack and the sequences of this movie, then I don't get it.
Brother, I didn't do that. I had never seen Tron Legacy until 2 days prior to Tron Ares. I was the biggest hater of Tron Ares because I didn't believe it was a project that was going to work. I watched Tron Legacy and I had a lot of fun with that film. I would even go as far as say the plot itself, actually really interesting. It had some really nice action sequences in it. I expected to get that from this film. I've never once expected this to be an A+ movie. I still expected to shit on this movie regardless if I had fun with it or not. I wish I could be sitting here right now saying I had a fun time with this. No, because they chose the worst writers, the worst director. They chose some very lackluster, other than Evan Peters, very lackluster actors to be in this film. And it is like, here's the thing, Jared Leto being flat, I'm not mad at that. I even said Jared Leto is not the worst part of this movie. It's everybody else who gives a flat performance in this movie. And it is stupid. The action sequences, which I want to have a fun time with, I can't have fun with because it's bogged down with so much CGI that it's beyond distracting. That CGI,
what are you
when they're
Tron! It's Tron! Tron is CGI! That is the entire point of Tron! Saying that, oh my god, there's so much CGI for Tron is delusional. I'm sorry.
No, hold on. It's not that there's too much CGI. It's the fact that the CGI from Tron Legacy is better than the CGI in this film. That's the issue, is that we've gone back. We are going back and degressing in the worst ways possible. And it's also just boring. I'm sorry. The fight, the biggest fight sequence that I loved from Tron Legacy was that final bridge sequence, which also wasn't completely CGI, by the way. There was some practical use in that. The entire bridge was practical use. The costumes, for the most part, were all practical use. Most of it actually was practical. Almost nothing in the grid in this film is practical. You could probably just assume they were in a blue room and they just filmed CGI people. It's also unlike part of that fight sequences. They probably used rigging and ropes and people were actually doing stunts. I feel like nobody in the grid battle sequences were actually doing stunts. It was probably just Jared Leto standing on stage going, "Hey, please add some convincing CG to this because I don't know what I'm doing." And it's just mind-boggling that we've digressed in that, especially when you see how much money was pumped into this film. You see that we are 15 years past Tron Legacy, meaning we should have advanced and stuff. I'm not mad at the film for this. I'm mad at Disney for being so greedy and saying you have this much time to work on this stuff. You need to rush this film out, and you give them the worst things to set it up. You gave them the Pirates of the Caribbean 5 director. And I don't even hate Pirates of the Caribbean 5. I think Pirates of the Caribbean 5 is fun. I at least enjoy that film to a certain extent. That you can have some fun with that. I just couldn't have fun with this movie. The villain is written it's just so poorly executed, so poorly acted.
I disagree. I think that the villain's turn, he is an evil, corrupt CEO who is willing to do absolutely necessary to do his bidding. He is willing to kill. He is willing to break and enter. He is willing to hack into systems. He is a psychotic CEO that is a representation of CEOs that we have right now. People who are willing to step on others in order to lift themselves up. He gets his comeuppance. His mom gets stabbed in front of him because of his bad decisions. That is a it's not a full circle character moment because they're setting it up for the next movie because he digitizes himself into the grid because he has nothing left going for him in this reality. But I think his character arc, while albeit not the best character arc of all time, is still an enjoyable character arc because you're going from this guy who has absolutely everything. He is being coddled. He is the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world, and he loses himself in that greed. He is willing to kill people and sacrifice things in order to put himself higher on that pedestal. And then his mom gets stabbed in front of him, and he has to have the realization of, oh shit, this was all for nothing. I've lost everything. All of my greed got ahead of me. Again, I'm not saying it's the best villain plot ever, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a total turn of, yes, you call it predictable. You got mad at me for saying that One Battle After Another was bad because it was predictable. So you want to call it bad for being predictable. One Battle After Another was also predictable.
The difference is that was good writing and this is shit writing. That's the difference.
I don't think this was shit writing. I really don't. Again, it's not the best ever, but it is good enough that you can have a really fun time with it. You can go in and be like, that character, yes, is comically evil, but the villains in One Battle After Another are also comically evil. They have a character. I'm only bringing it up because that was the first movie that came to mind after this because it's a movie that you loved. I'm not saying that these movies are anywhere near quality. I can understand that One Battle After Another, even if I didn't enjoy it, is way higher quality than this movie. I'll get that right out of the way. But comparing those, because there's similar points that we brought up in both arguments when we were talking about it, I think that having a comically evil villain works for me because it is a caricature of reality. I think that this movie it does what it sought out to do. And I told a friend this because, again, big Tron fans. And I was like, I can understand that this movie is flawed. However, I feel like I have a really good judge of going into a movie and evaluating it off of what that movie wants to give me. This movie does not want to give me a deep story. It's not seeking to make me blow my mind with every single moment like a One Battle After Another is, and its introspective, deep character moments. This story is giving you a caricatures to tell a fear-mongering story about AI, because this is not pro-AI, this is anti-AI to a degree. It is anti-negative AI, and it is seeking to give you a great soundtrack and some great action sequences. The acting, it's not the best. The story, like the writing, it's not the best, but it doesn't need to be, because it still is able to deliver exactly the package that this movie was going to be delivering you. A fun movie with great music, great action sequences, and a story that is pretty good.
So I would agree with you on the music. And the only reason I know I'm okay with saying that I don't feel like I'm wrong is because I went with two people who have grown up with Tron, people who have loved the franchise, who love these films, literally glazed Tron Legacy for all it's worth. We were listening to the soundtrack yesterday. That's how much they love Tron Legacy. They like the story. They like the characters of that movie. They were the ones to walk out of this movie going that it was complete shit. I didn't even say anything first. I hadn't even said my thoughts because I didn't want to actually like break their spirit in case they did like it. They actively hated this movie because of everything that was thrown at it. The only positive they gave, and it still even in some ways had a negative because they said it's not as good as Tron Legacy, was the music. That was the only positive they gave. The action sequences are uninspiring. You brought up like things that they need to do right as a package to make this film work and make it fun. And I agree with you. Those are things that can make it fun. That's part of the reason why I actually loved Tron Legacy was because those things worked for me. They were really well executed and they were a lot of fun. Here, no tension. I didn't care for the action sequences. They were all just looked horrible. They were, I already said, uninspiring. There were times that just broke logic. Like I was sitting next to my friend who this was one of the people that loved it when Eve drove her bike off the building to knock Athena off her bike and knock her down the parking garage. His literal reaction was, that was your plan? That was really stupid.
I think it makes
Athena,
she's not thinking logically.
yeah,
She's
but you're
being
also
down.
you're not
She's not gonna, like, yes, she's a genius, but she's not gonna put together this 7-brain super genius plan. I thought it was like, yeah, that's exactly what you do to get someone off your tail. What is she supposed to jump off the building? Like, no, she's gonna do what
no,
she can to slow down Athena.
but the logic is that that's not possible. She
What do
can't
you
do
mean
that.
it's not possible? That's
She is a human scientist being in a actual sense. She did something that a superhero, something that Ares would be able to do. In no way, shape, or form did they set up prior in this movie that she had some sort of fighting knowledge, that she could do
she
anything
doesn't
like
fight.
that.
This is fighting. This isn't fighting. This is her throwing her off with the motorcycle.
I'm saying it doesn't work. The logic doesn't add up. It's not built to
We get these
anything.
types of sequences so many times. This is such a common trope in action movies. Yes, you can
Yeah.
make the argument that she's a scientist, but clearly she knows how to ride a bike. She doesn't need to be James Bond to be able to know how to ride a bike and throw her bike off and use that to stop Athena.
Well, and you know what? Initially, I would have said, yeah, that was a cool bit. And then they ruined it whenever the girl started running up the spiral, and
Oh, that was so funny. That was so funny.
it was
My
funny, but
entire
for a
theater
different
was
reason.
laughing at it. It was
We
so funny.
No, we all agreed at the end of the movie that everybody had a problem with running in this film, and we don't know why, but it was like weird.
No. I'll tell you what the running is. And if you have a problem with this running, you should have a problem with this running. It's the Tom Cruise running. It is
Oh yeah.
exactly
Oh,
how Tom Cruise
absolutely.
runs. It is exactly. It is the stiff like this running that we get in every single Tom Cruise movie is what the characters run like in this movie. And I personally found it, again, these are computer programs. You act like these characters, like Athena, who's running stupidly, is a human. She's not. She's a computer program. Of course she's going to run stiff and run stereotypical because she's not a human. She's not fluid. All the characters who are in the grid give very stiff and robotic performances because that's what they are. They're fucking robots.
I sure. I'm gonna say sure. Because I can't really linger on that anymore. Things just kind of happen in this movie. Like that's the best. Like this movie just happens. Like, there's no weight, there's no nothing. He doesn't give you anything. Even in like
Well, it's
movies
very
you can have fun
fast
with.
paced. It is very breakneck speed for a 2-hour movie. There's not really a lot of time for you to set up stakes. I'll give you that.
Right.
Because you really just go from, it has a slow start, or I should say slower start with the Eve stuff. After you set up the Eve stuff with her going into the Arctic, from that point on, it is just one big action sequence is what I'll call this movie, essentially.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, things just kind of happen. And like, because they didn't set up stakes or tension, you don't care about, I didn't care about any of it. Eve is the worst written character in this movie, and you follow her the entire point. Basically, the plot centers around her character. It doesn't really technically center around Ares. It centers around Eve. Ares is a part of it.
What did you like about Eve, though? Like, what made
Greta,
her so...
I can't blame it on Greta Lee. I don't think it's her acting. I think it genuinely is just what she was given writing wise. That,
But give me specifics, because I again, she's not a Leonardo DiCaprio well-written character. I can understand that. But her whole plot is she wants to get revenge for her sister, who, well, not revenge, but she wants to live up to her sister's expectations. And she does that. Yes, it's very cut and dry, but it's not bad.
No, that's the issue, is that it's cut and dry. That is part of the issue. But the sequence in the car when it's Leto and Lee it's Ares and Eve talking. I'm not going to use their actor names. When it's the two of them talking, is trying to do something. And it falls so flat on its face because he gets in the car. And I get he's a computer program. I don't care if he's a computer program. But he gives the biggest exposition dump. And I'm not saying you don't know what happened. It's very poorly set up, by the way, in the beginning with what happened with the sister. And you kind of get it. But it's all kind of told to you even in the beginning section. And here they give you the biggest exposition dump. And then they try to have, it's funny because they try to have a heart-to-heart conversation of, why do you want to give up being a scientist? You shouldn't give up being a scientist. Okay. It's not progressive. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't add tension to the movie in anything. It doesn't add stakes to any of the movie. It just happens. Things happen in this movie, and because when you set up your film and you don't add anything, this is the problem. You can't have fun with it if they don't give you anything at all to latch onto. Unless you have good action sequences, which this film does not, because it's riddled with lackluster CGI that makes something from 15 years ago look like that film should be made now.
I am the number one CGI hater in the world. I hate bad CGI. I will call out bad CGI whenever I see it. I thought that this was really good looking CGI. I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that this was good looking CGI. And here's the other thing. You want to make the argument of, oh, they didn't use enough practical while in the grid? Honestly, I'm glad. It's a computer. It's not practical. Make it overly CGI. It's a fucking computer.
Then at least make
you can say that better. You can say that Tron Legacy did and had practical. Cool. They did that. Whatever. I don't care. I'd rather it be CGI when you're in a computer, because that's what a computer is. It's the ones and zeros and digitized nature of things, than have it be this weird, okay, why did they go into a computer and everything looks like reality? That's not what the inside the computer is supposed to look like. That is my argument, is I understand that when we're in the real world, things should look real. And for the most part, it's pretty serviceable. I think the bikes, for instance, were practical in certain sequences. They looked real. They at least in certain scenes had real bikes.
In certain.
When they're riding on them, yeah, it's CGI, but they're not going to recreate those action sequences in real life. That'd be very difficult.
Well, obviously, even in the original, in Tron Legacy, they were still CGI.
Yeah. So in those moments, it's and here's the other argument is. And I'm not going to make this argument. I'm going to make this very clear. I'm going to say this is an argument you can make because it goes along with the argument that I am making, but I don't agree with this argument. And you can say that, oh, the bad CGI in reality is the same argument that I'm making for why things look CGI in the grid is because, oh, they're computer programs. Of course they're going to look dopey in reality. I'm not going to make that argument because I don't like that argument. If things look like weird in reality, I would blame that on bad CGI. I don't think it looks all that terrible, though. Is it groundbreaking Avatar level CGI? No, I'll give you that. I don't think I didn't really clock anything that looked atrociously bad. But then you go into the grid, no shit, things are going to look digitized and look like a computer and look like CGI, because that's exactly what it is. No wonder the character faces might look a little weird sometimes. They're computer programs. They're not supposed to be real people. These aren't supposed to be real objects. These are computer programs. And maybe my perspective is different on this because I spent not just 4 years in college, but since literally 10 years old, computer programming and working on creating digital worlds. Maybe that's just a different perspective because of that. But I would rather the sequences in the grid look like CGI and look maybe a little janky because it is a computer program than look practical and then, oh, it looks better, but to me, it looks less believable.
Sure, I get that. The issue is you don't want to compare your movie to Spy Kids 3D.
I wouldn't say that this is Spy Kids 3D. I think it looks way better than Spy Kids 3D.
Right. No, Spy Kids 3D is a much better acted film. No. I'm sorry. Okay, that one's a bit far-fetched. I just wanted to piss you off with that one. No, I do give Tron.
Minecraft is my #1 movie of the year. It throws the CGI in the Minecraft movie is so much. Shut the fuck up.
No. Minecraft. I still say Minecraft movie is worse than this.
If you think Minecraft movie is better than any movie that came out this year, I will give it credit. It is the best fun bad movie that came out this year, but very heavy emphasis on the bad part.
I might need to think about it more because Tron Ares is like something I just didn't have fun with at all, and a lot of people didn't have fun with. At least I had fun with the Minecraft movie. Maybe that would put it over the edge, but it was really bad. If I would say Minecraft movie is just really, like, even though it's fun, it was really bad.
You're going to be really pissed off when at the end of the year, this is either an honorable mention or in my top 10 movies of the year. Because
no, I'm not going to address it. Like, this is the last time I'm ever talking about this movie again. I'm telling you now.
With where this, like, I haven't actually looked at my list since seeing this movie, so maybe it won't reach, but top 15, I feel like, is pretty reasonable for just how much enjoyment. I'm going to probably watch this movie again tomorrow with, I will say I'm very curious because my friend who is like biggest Tron Ares fan, kind of like I know who you're talking about with our mutual friend down in Florida who loves Tron. I'm curious with this friend who I'm seeing him. He's the one picking me up in an hour. I'm going to ask him like, hey, you want to go see Tron? And he's probably going to say yes, because he's been wanting to see this movie and he wanted to see it with me, but just couldn't for logistics purposes. So I'm curious his perspective on this movie as well, because you're saying that the Tron fans aren't liking this movie. The Tron fans online that I saw were enjoying this movie. Now, granted, again, I haven't watched any full reviews, so I don't know the perspective. I just see like TikTok and YouTube comments on certain things, but a lot of people are putting this movie above Tron Legacy even. I saw quite a few comments saying that this is better than Legacy. Am I going to be one of them that agrees with it? No, but I also haven't seen Legacy recently enough to make that argument.
That's rough. If people are doing that like that, oh my god, that I don't even understand. And I don't like Tron Legacy that much. Like I probably will never watch Tron Legacy. I'll listen to the soundtrack on repeat. I might never even watch Tron Legacy again. Well, yeah. The logic and the plot, like the final fight sequence is about. It's about 40 minutes long because I timed it.
I
timed it. I timed it. It's okay. It's like 35.
Here, let me ask you. What are you counting as the final sequence? Because when you said that, I thought of the final fight, like the actual hand-to-hand combat sequence.
No.
I'm talking about the entire action sequence of the chase.
It's the moment Athena loads into the real world. That's the final sequence. And
well, yes, that is going to be long, but why is that a bad thing? Are you wanting them to cut between a bunch of different things? I'd rather them spend more time on this.
No, because the logic doesn't work because she's supposed to die in 30 minutes, and there's no way in hell that 30 minutes hadn't gone by.
No. You timing this in reality versus doing it in movie time is, there are things that can be happening at the same time, brother. When they're cutting to the moments of them like hacking into the system, that's happening at the same time as the stuff that's happening afterwards. This isn't one continuous, everything's happening in succession. Things are happening at the same time. So saying that it's bad, like it's bad because you timed it and it's longer than the 29 minutes, yes, they're not trying to make you think that this isn't, what is it, 1917, where this entire movie is a single shot. Things are happening at the same time. When they say 29 minutes, they're not saying start a stopwatch from the second it happens in the movie, it's 29 minutes. That's not what they're saying. They're saying in that world time, it is 29 minutes. And I think it's pretty believable that it's 29 minutes.
It's the fact that, first off, they're in a car. She knows where she's going. They end up taking a sports car about halfway through. It makes sense. Jared Leto could get to that one building on his own. It makes sense that Athena, the first time around, on that big winged glider, which is light and quick, it can move quickly, can get to the building on time and chase after Ares and Eve. What doesn't make sense is the big, I don't know what it's called, big Imperial ship. I don't know what it's called. The big
Yeah, the big this ship.
The big T ship.
That is not a T. That is an upside down U, brother.
Okay, fair enough. The upside down U. Which
actually, no. I'm so stupid. Why did I just call it an upside down U? You know that there's a letter that is an upside down U? Can you guess it really quickly to prove how stupid I am?
It's called an N. The N ship.
Yeah, it's the N ship.
The N ship. No, hold on. No, not the N ship. The lowercase N ship. It is the lowercase N ship. Why are we arguing over the merits of like the ship shape? Good Lord. But it moves about as slow as molasses, and it's believable for some reason that you can believe it gets from point A to point B in the same time that the lighter ship and the lighter car can get to this spot in 30 minutes. While at the same time, Athena's clock is already running
at the building. They were already at the building when the bigger ship started moving. This wasn't the car. No, the car chase wasn't happening when the bigger ship was moving. That is
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Now I'm confused because
Leto is already Leto. So see, you're confused because it's the plot.
No, I'm confused by your shitty explanation.
Leto, Eve, and the other guy, Seth. I had to look at his name. Seth. Send Leto or Ares into the 80s. That was actually the only positive thing. ADHD was the 80s bit. I thought that was really unique for like 5 seconds.
I will say, I really wish they didn't spoil that in the trailer because that would have been such a big pop. But literally in the first trailer, they're like, look, we're doing something. We're going back. It's like, that was such a small moment that would have been such a big pop for Tron fans. Sorry, ADHD as well, but I just wanted to point that out.
Sorry, we're kind of all over the place with this. But they send him into the 80s grid, right? Mm-hmm. While that's happening, they still have a few fight sequence. They have a quick fight sequence with Athena, so he's already in the grid, right? Athena melts back away. The ship hasn't started moving yet. Athena comes back, and it's probably 2 minutes after she comes back that she's setting up the program, doing all this, that she kills the mom. So she's already on the clock for 2 minutes at this point. So she has 28 minutes left. The ship has to build itself. So let's say that takes probably about 3 minutes. So 25 minutes left. The ship has to move from that spot in the, whatever it's called, the warehouse shed, which also
we'll call it the military base or whatever.
Whatever it's called, the military base has to move from there to the building that they're in or to the city. That ship is moving significantly slower than the big fast ship that she was in earlier. It's moving about as slow as molasses. It's not that the ship can't make it there. It's the fact that Athena makes it there and still has a whole hand-to-hand combat situation while piloting the big ship. It breaks logic. The one thing that I will say is the warehouse doesn't look at all destroyed in any capacity on the outside.
That was pretty funny. I will give you that.
I looked at my friends didn't even.
There was not the greatest. I'll give you credit there.
My that logic, I was also like, that should be destroyed. Why is it like completely unharmed? They didn't just take it out the front door.
I'll give you that. I will give you that. That is a fair command. No, but I don't have a problem with the timing of that sequence whatsoever because Airplanes, here's the thing. You say that it moves slow like molasses. We only see it moving slow when it gets to the city and she needs to be more methodical about her movements. We don't know how fast it was moving to get from the warehouse here. Airplanes and flying objects move way faster. The average airplane speed is like 450 miles an hour, and those are big hunking things in the sky. And yes, this is nowhere near as aerodynamic as an airplane, but it's also a video game spaceship that's probably able to move at relatively similar speeds to get from point A to point B pretty quickly. And then she slows down to be a little bit more methodical in her movements. But I still think that things happen pretty quickly. Again, it feels like a long time in the movie, but that's because we're cutting to a bunch of different scenes that are all happening at the same time. Not this scene happens, this scene happens, this scene happens, which does obviously occur. Like there is still that, but I don't have as big of a problem with the time that it takes for any of that to happen as you do.
It's just logic. I'm sorry, I couldn't scrub that from my mind. And that's like not even like it's an Oscar worthy level logic breaking. It's just like a generic logic breaking thing for me where I'm like, I can't justify that. I just couldn't. The last thing I'll talk about before I give up my final thoughts is Cameron Monaghan. That's all I'm gonna say
from this movie. I know, because it's really funny, because speaking on that, I saw him at the red carpet and there were quite a few people in the comments that were like, oh my God, he was in this movie. Why didn't they push his advertising more? He was in the movie for 5 seconds, so no shit they didn't push his advertising more. And then I find out that they cut his character down like significantly, which does suck. I'll give you that. It would have been interesting to see what they did with his character to build up to it, but I like, cool, they use it to further the plot. It's used as a through line to help to help Ares' development in the futility of life and why his supreme commander is just sacrificing people, because this sequence happens after he downloads all these human emotions and starts processing a lot of these human emotions by observing real people for the first time. So
I just thought they should just cut his character entirely or put a mask on him. Like my thing is that it's Cameron Monaghan. Put a mask over him and like have the same effect
like
happen.
It was an okay cameo. I don't get, like, it was a cameo. Why, like, that's all he needed. Like, I don't get what the only reason there's a problem is because they cut his character significantly. The fact that it's Cameron Monaghan has no merit on his enjoyability as a character. See an enjoyable character? No, but he's also just there to serve the plot. And the fact that it's Cameron Monaghan, I don't get why you're negative on the fact that it's Cameron Monaghan.
Because now Cameron Monaghan has to be associated with this film. That's
Fuck
the thing.
You. Fuck you.
Final thoughts. I can sum it up in one word. Ass. Next. Go ahead, Brandon.
This is one of my favorite movies of the year. This is such a fun time. Don't listen to Carson. He is objectively wrong. He does not know what he's talking about with movies. I love you, brother. This is all Josh. Carson gets it. This is all joshing.
This is what we do on a regular basis, so I'm not like upset about it. Like, this is just normal.
This podcast is literally just the conversation we would be having right now if the cameras weren't on. Crash outs and everything. This is exactly the conversation we would be having.
Yeah.
But from a genuine standpoint, is this a perfect movie? No. Can I see the flaws in this movie? Yes. It is still a very fun time. If you are going into this movie to have a fun time and get some fear-mongering about AI and a generically evil villain that's kind of comical at times, you're going to have a really good time. If you really like Nine Inch Nails, you're going to have a really good time. If you're looking for the most deep, introspective, one battle after another style movies, yeah, no shit, you're going to need to look elsewhere. That's not ever what Tron is trying to be.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody, nobody would have thought that ever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that you can still have a really good time with this movie. I personally really, really enjoyed it, but that's just my personal opinion. We can stop talking about it because I know Carson is sick and tired of me glazing a movie that he hates. But
I hate.
Roles were reversed last week. I was shitting on a movie that you loved. So all is fair in love and war.
Very true.
Well, wrapping that up, we are done with episode 32, Carson.
Woohoo!
Episode 32.
It's a big one.
It's not a big one, but it is crazy. It's half a Minecraft stack. Bringing in Minecraft, it's half a stack in Minecraft.
Oh man, no, I remember looking at oh my gosh, I just got your reference. Oh my god, I'm tired. No, but like we reached episode 30 and I realized, oh my god, we did How to Train Your Dragon 15 episodes prior. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that was then.
Not only has this been 32 episodes, this has been 32 weeks. We've been doing this for over half a year now.
Goodness.
Well, next week, I don't think we've technically finalized exactly what we're talking about next week. There's 3 things that are on the docket, so I'll just give those 3 things, and you'll find out next week what we decide.
Sure.
Eternity. It is the new Elizabeth Olsen movie.
Yep.
Then we have Roofman, which is the new Channing Tatum movie. Those are the 2 big ones. Those are the 2 new releases. There's also been some conversation about also technically, and I haven't talked about this, the new why am I blanking on the name? I almost called him John Wick.
Because I'm pretty sure it's not John Wick.
I know it's not John Wick. Carson, please just throw me a bone here.
You got to give me what is this movie called?
John Wick, Carson.
Huh?
Who plays John Wick, Carson?
Keanu Reeves.
Thank you. The new Keanu Reeves movie comes out this week, I believe, as well. The one where he becomes an angel. Don't shit on me. I'm tired. I went to bed at 3 a.m. and I am starving right now.
I'm gonna watch it because I feel like that movie's gonna be so stupid. I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it's gonna be good or bad. That movie's just gonna be stupid fun. Like
So those are the 3 movies, and then there's also been some conversation because the week after we're reviewing Chainsaw Man, we're actually gonna have guests on that episode. We're gonna have at least 1 or 2 friends on that episode as well. So there will be 3 to 4 of us, which will be interesting how that changes the dynamic. It won't. I'm still going to crash out if necessary. But the conversation is we might do a Carson's thoughts on Chainsaw Man as a season next week. But given that there's 3 movies, that's unlikely. We'll probably just include that in the Chainsaw Man movie. But just throwing it out there, we're going to be talking about something next week. That's all that's confirmed, is something is going to be talked about. But Carson, do you have any final thoughts on just everything going on? I'm excited. I will say as well, sorry to cut you off, I'm really excited for the rest of New York Comic-Con. Oh, yeah. I really am excited because we've gotten some other stuff that we didn't talk about that is just stuff that we don't really watch together. Like there's a bunch of Critical Role stuff that came out that I'm really excited about. Like I'm so depressed that we're not there, but I'm also so happy when con season happens and we get more announcements.
You're dead to me.
Next year, buddy, we're going to be refreshing like goddamn Taylor Swift tickets. Because I live right down the street. I live 3 hours away, but I'm close enough to New York that it is really reasonable to do. So it's,
Anyway,
anything to close us off?
I'm hungry. I want to eat food. So
I'm so hungry, dude. I'm so starving. Also, this is the first podcast where I forgot to fill up my water beforehand. I did not drink an ounce of water during this entire episode. So definitely feeling that. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast where your 2 favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. You can find us on all social media platforms at Nerdy Nimrods, where we post our 3-minute reviews, our rants, our thoughts. We also have a clips channel that I'm really bad at keeping up with, but I will do better in the future. I have set up a system going forward that will hopefully make things way easier. So expect more clips. That Tron crash out of me crashing out over the AI is going to be a clip. Also, the CGI crash out is going to be. Check us out on all social media platforms. We are on all podcast hosting platforms as well: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. You can find us literally anywhere. We're going to be talking about so many things for forever. We crash out. This is so much fun. I know we both enjoy doing this so much, and I hope you enjoy listening to us. But with that being said, as always, brothers and sisters, stay nerdy.